like, say, public service media, media literacy training for young children, do you think that those could be effective measures that would perhaps eliminate the need for a blanket ban?
These are measures which are necessary, but it's for the moment, I think we are in such an urgency situation. The reports I read, where you see that a lot of children are more than 3 hours online on social media only, often 5 hours, and this excludes the time they're on the tablet for schools or when they watch streaming movies, etc. And there is studies how this affects their mental health. And then also the grooming, the adults who pretend that they are young people. All this, there's some dangers and risks, and I think for the moment I don't see how we can mitigate it.
And your country right now, Portugal, and I know that you probably don't agree with this policy, they're pushing actually for a ban. They're considering it. Hasn't happened yet. What would you say, like, what is the argument there? It seems that at least the government there is in favor of this. They're looking at what France is doing, they're looking at Greece, they're looking at Australia, even New Zealand, and they're saying we need to do this too.
Yeah. Very quickly, again, nobody's disputing that there are problems and dangers online. It's really about the effective way of tackling this. And effective means we're really protecting children, not putting them at more risk, and by the way, all of us at more risk with our data exposed. Well, yes, Portugal is following suit. I find that very concerning. We hope to have a honest debate at the national level because it's very easy, and I think we, in general, the EU has followed a risk-averse, overly protective, overly controlling strategy to tackle the new challenges of our age. I think that there's a general tendency to catastrophize the issues that we're facing, and that usually annuls a reasonable debate, a balanced debate, and calls for always very blunt solutions that are very appealing. It looks like the lawmaker is really doing something bold, but is not really revealing care for the effectiveness. And I have to say one more thing. There's often the argument that the ban is science-based. It is not science-based. The problem is science-based, and the ban is actually highly contested in the scientific community and in the technological community, who is warning, by the way, privacy NGOs, organizations, calling for caution. Also, because, the positive side of it,
I want to give you the last word there, Mark.
Can we leave our children at the mercy of algorithms that operate in the dark, who are just responsible for their masters in Silicon Valley and in China? I don't want them that they are at the mercy of these dark algorithms and no transparency. We want no responsibility.
I'm going to have to leave it on that last word there. You brought in an interesting idea, which is a topic for another debate. Some contend this is less about protecting children and minors than standing up to the American and Chinese tech giants. That's an issue for another day. But I'd like to thank you both. This is obviously a watch this space issue. It's not going away. Many European countries now getting on board with the idea of a ban. Not happening yet, but the idea of a ban. I'm sure we'll be back to talk about this several times in the coming months. Thank you for being here today on your debate/discussion. Thank you all for watching.
This information conveyed to the most senior levels.
We need to sustain this support and funding so that if we do get something again like COVID, we're prepared. But it's become so politicized.
Watch Texas, the health battle on France 24.
Non, faut ne pas casser avant.
France 24 presents digital news.
Une.
France 24 digital version. Economy, sport, news, special reports, all on demand. France 24, your first choice for news.
Now the dog comes from that bad side. Nah, to come in
He said he'd take the boat. I told him I wouldn't allow it. I did everything to stop it happening. 20 years ago, thousands fled Senegal with hopes of a better life in the Canary Islands. But the perilous journey meant their dreams turned into a living nightmare.
We all had friends or acquaintances who were lost at sea.
Our journalists met Saliu, a humanitarian worker who dedicates his life to these victims.
Today there is a real feeling of anger towards the authorities who neglect this issue.
Faced with guilt and the fear of rejection, families are unable to grieve.
You see the stakes there. That's where we bury the dead. I think we have to forget. We must not forget.
Watch Senegal's 2006 migrant crisis revisited on France 24.
Hello, thank you for watching Paris Direct. These are the headlines. The death toll.
Army announced as its intention, it said specifically, and this is quite rare during the ceasefire, it did say specifically that it was launching an operation, a counter-terror operation in Gaza. I'm highlighting this because during the period of the ceasefire, we haven't heard much about military operations per se. We've heard about this strike or that strike or a response to the Israeli army that says such and such attack. But rarely have we seen the word operation. So this may be several hours long or even longer. We don't know. I did try to find out what the plans are and didn't get any response. The numbers of the dead are rising. Overnight we've heard 9, then 10, then 11. But I do think it's important to mention that for now, at least, the Hamas Health Ministry have not identified the dead. So on neither side have we heard if the dead are armed militants, are children and women. We don't yet know. So this is very much an event underway, and it should underscore for all of us how fragile this ceasefire is and how, to what an extent, its conditions really have not brought peace and quiet to the residents of the Gaza Strip.
One of the last rulings for the extreme pilots in the United States has led to massive pressure on powerful individuals in the U.S., in the Middle East, and here in Europe. Here in France, the French prosecutors often announced that they were especially for massive distributors evidence that may implicate international. Among the cases that will receive special attention is that of the lead modeling agency executive Julie Brunel, who's associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Stephen Brown.
French investigators are hunting for evidence of sexual and financial crimes with a public prosecutor who will be zooming in on 2 key figures. First, the former head of the modeling agency Jean-Luc Junet, Epstein's alleged French recruiter. Charged with the rape of a minor, the case was dismissed in July 2023 following his suicide. Now, the goal is to extract any evidence that can jumpstart a fresh investigation. Again, there is Daniel Siad, another recruiter close to Epstein. Siad remains under investigation following a complaint from a Swedish woman after she accused him of rape in 1990 in France.
And then we got closer and we started putting his hand on my eye and he got a little uncomfortable and we continued and then he said, well, to be able to be so famous, you have to give something for yourself. Legal pressure is also mounting against diplomat Fabrice Egans to Epstein, alongside conductor Frederic Chesler, who faces sexual harassment complaints. These cases join a broader financial investigation into former culture minister Jacques Lang and his daughter Caroline, both of whom are being investigated for tax fraud and money laundering.
It is the third and final Panamanian Security Conference annual gathering of politicians, military leaders, and security experts. You could say much of the first 2 days had an outlook for Europe, focusing on the EU's relationship with the United States and Russia's war against Ukraine. The Sunday is a bit more about the locks of role, its influence, and how it functions. Our correspondent Nick Holdsworth reports.
We certainly have already begun to hear that response today. The focus of the Security Conference today is on Europe, and the first speech is given by Kaja Kallas, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, and she says, well, yeah, of course Europe understands it has challenges. For sure, we need reforms. We need to strengthen our defences, our security.